You're listening to Permission to Shine, the podcast by Sherisse Bisram. The Oxford Dictionary describes permission as the action of officially allowing someone to do a particular thing, consent, authorization. What if you were that someone and you gave yourself the permission to be everything you wanted to be and more? No more playing small and accepting less than. You are worthy of the life of your dreams, regardless of what it is that you've been through. And honestly, it's exactly what you've been through that has shaped you into the version of yourself that you are now. Like a diamond, you've endured so much, but instead of breaking, you have become stronger and brighter. And if that's not a reason to shine, then I don't know what is. And if nature can do it, then why the hell can't you? You are brave, you are strong, you are powerful, and you are enough. Hear my call and give yourself the permission to shine, because you don't realise how many people are inspired by your light. Like, share, follow, subscribe, and listen out for more. Stay tuned. Hello everyone. Now I've been so excited about this episode all week because I met with the guest in the week and she started to tell me her story and I was like, no, stop, because I don't want to know. I want to wait. I want to be excited with my audience as well. So I'm so grateful and honoured to introduce this week's guest. So this is episode 19 and my guest today is Clare Morgan. Hello, Clare.
Hi, Sherisse.
Thank you so much for joining us. As I said, like from the moment that we kind of had our little connection call, instantly I was like, there's so much to you. You've got such a warm energy and I can't wait for the audience to just hear your story because, I've not had anyone on the show that's like you and like your story. So I just think it's going to be a really nice, hopefully insightful episode for the listeners.
Oh, thank you so much. And I've been really looking forward to it as well because listening to your episodes, your energy and the way that you talk about things in the world and how to interpret the stuff that happens to us is just really connects to me. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it.
Oh, thank you. Well, do you want to sort of tell us a little bit about yourself, like what you do for work, like who you are, and then we'll start to dive into your story after that. So if you want to connect it all together, you're more than welcome to. If you want to have a break in between, I'll take your lead.
No worries. So I am a printmaker. I'm a fine art printmaker. I've been doing fine art forever, since I can remember. My work in its current form, though, is very much born out of my experiences. So I think it's been shaped by everything that's happened, the content, things like that. And it's very much a celebration of humanity, I would say, but also this idea of encouraging you to go with the flow of the seasons and to take our lessons from nature, because we're in a culture that forces us to be on the go all of the time and to be productive all of the time. And actually, nature doesn't do that. Nature has to have these pauses and time to like slow down and replenish and gather energy. And there's a lot of lessons in that. So I kind of create my work to share that with other people. But I would probably say at the heart of it, I'm trying so hard to remember all the lessons that have been handed to me, so that I can hang on to them and just live better.
Yeah, I love that so much. And I mean, you, as you said, you've listened before, so you know that I talk about the seasons all the time, and I love that that's part of your ethos and your stimuli for what you create, because you're so right. It really is that, and I can't say that enough about how we are just in this hustle culture. We're forcing everything. And like you said, nature is dictating to us how life is. We're not in a constant summer. We are in a winter sometimes, and it's okay. All of it is part of the experience, isn't it? And beautiful in its own way.
And sometimes fighting against it, that's when the unease can come in. And that's actually when things can start to break down. I think at some point we get a message. And I definitely had mine.
Yeah, well, I'd love to dive straight into that. So I don't know if you want to tell us about the heavy part now, go straight into that, and then we can work backwards to go forwards. I feel like that might be a really nice way to kind of, how we connected in this part, your story.
Yeah, so say if I was to go back maybe 7 years, I was working in education. I went into education as an art teacher because I absolutely adore art. I love it. And so I went into teaching, loved teaching, but started to go through kind of the progression of teaching. It kind of sucks you in, you go to the next step and the next step. And I was at a stage in my career where I was in leadership, and I was not in the classroom as much as I used to be, but it also occupied so much of my time and attention. On the outside, it probably looked like everything was going really well, and on paper it looks like it was going really well, but there was kind of an unease about, I felt a bit uneasy about it, and I couldn't put my finger on it at the time. In hindsight, I can see that I was probably missing being creative. I wasn't creating my own stuff, I wasn't in the classroom as much. My creative energy, I was using it, but I was using it to put into like school policy or creating things or creating system. Like, it felt kind of like it was creative, but it wasn't, not in the same way. So I started to become quite poorly, and I was getting poorly like over a period of time. I just kept getting infections I couldn't get rid of, to the point where I lost my hearing and had to have grommets, and lost my voice and had to have speech therapy to get my voice back. I was in the classroom with like a little tape recorder thing and microphones so the students could hear me. It was all just taking its toll, but I couldn't put my finger on what was going on. And I thought I could fix it. I thought if I only just went to the gym more, if I got a personal trainer, if I ate just super clean, if I did all these things, that would magically fix it and I could get myself back on track. But it just didn't, nothing was working. And then I went to work one day, because when you are kind of constantly poorly, you will push through on those days, even if you're not feeling great, because it becomes your normal. You think it's normal to feel that. You think it's quite normal to feel that way. And I'd gone to school and I left, and I thought, I've got to go to the doctors again. And I was going to the doctors very frequently with things like things that could be put down to other stuff. So I remember going in, and they said, and it was because of the frequent sort of chest infections, I was struggling to breathe. So when I was walking upstairs, I would get out of breath. They said, oh, maybe you're allergic to your cats. So I had an inhaler. I moved out of my house for a couple of weeks to see whether it was my cats that was causing it. I'd get like itchy legs, and they'd say, well, maybe it's what you're washing your clothes with. So I'd try different things. And it was this whole just try this, try this, try this. And the breaking point was this one day when I went to the doctors, and it was a locum that was in, a guy I'd not seen before. And he like felt my liver and my spleen. He was like, that feels like not right. Turns out I had a massive liver and spleen. So like all of the students, and then when I got into hospital, were coming to have a feel. It was bonkers. So he basically sent me to hospital, and I ended up in hospital for 2 weeks while they figured out what was going on. Because even there, nobody was really sure. And then I got diagnosed with two things. So the first thing was something called CVID, which is a common variable immune disorder, which means I don't make antibodies, which is why I was getting the infections repeatedly, because my body couldn't fight it off. And then the second was a week later, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And I was like, what on earth what's lymphoma? I've got no idea what that even is. And then they said it's a form of cancer, it's a blood cancer, and it was peripheral T cell. I was like, okay, so I know what I'm dealing with. There was yes, it was a shock, but after being so ill for that long with no answer, there was an element of relief, because I thought, you know what, they know, like, I know what I'm dealing with. They know what they're dealing with. Now we can actually just focus on getting it sorted. And that's where your energy starts to go. And that was such a weird time, because I can describe it as there was that sense of relief, which is unexpected. The whole thing is like an absolute roller coaster. And within that time, a few key things happened that I really remember. One of them was actually feeling less stressed, which, when you think about it, it was because all the other stuff was stripped away. I didn't have to worry about work and all the rest of it. That didn't actually matter. My world had reduced to actually just looking after myself. There were the bits that were really tough were thinking about when you have to tell your family and have those conversations on the phone. Those are the really challenging ones. But me, I actually felt okay because I was like, I can get this sorted. I can deal with it. I'm glad it's me, and I'm glad it's not a family member. It's really hard if you're watching someone go through it. But for me, in it, I was okay. And your world kind of shrinks from treatment to treatment. So you have this idea of your world, like, we think so far ahead and we put stuff off, and we think, oh, when I retire, I'm going to do this. Like, when I look this certain way, I'll go and do this. And you're like, my goodness, it is, you can't guarantee any of that. So the conversation I had with it felt really cliche. I was like, shall I say this or shall I not say this? But I wanted to know. So I said to my doctor, what are the chances that I can get through this? Like, what are my odds of getting through this? Because I actually just want to know. I want to know everything. And she said, oh, it's probably about 50-50 of getting through this first bit. And I was like, okay, that's like rolling a dice, really. Well, not rolling a dice, flipping a coin. And that also gives you a sense of perspective, because you think, well, everything I'm doing could actually be the last one. It could be the last birthday, the last Christmas, and then actually you commit to making the absolute most of it, and you commit to living. So, I mean, I was probably a pain of a patient, because sometimes I had to go into hospital and all I would do was sit there thinking about, well, when I can get out, I've got this planned and this planned and this planned, and I'm going to this place and I'm seeing this person. Because you learn the flow of what your treatment's like. There's bits where you do kind of feel a bit rubbish, but then you get, like, because you're on steroids after your chemo, you get this like high, and then that's when you end up like cleaning your entire house and doing all this stuff. And then you get this period of time where it's a bit more balanced. You can go out and do things. I sold my car and bought a soft top Mazda MX-5, and my dad it was funny because at that time I think I would have told my dad I could do like anything, and I'd have got away with it. And I loved it because I thought, there's no guarantee of getting to retirement, so I'm just going to have a lot of fun.
Oh,
And
I love that.
I did have a lot of fun, and I spent time with people that I loved.
No, I love that so much. And I think what's so beautiful about your story is that, you know, in the real brink of such a hard thing that probably affected everyone around you, your energy and your attitude towards life is probably what kept everyone around you really motivated. You know, like even you buying the car, like I'm sure that actually your dad was heartbroken hearing your diagnosis, but actually knowing that you were happy in that moment, it's like he was like, you know what, babe, you do what you want.
Yeah,
and I think and that's it. And I think this is really that real defining thing about life, is that we can let life happen to us, or we can choose what we do with it. You know, like we can't control the circumstances, but we can control how we feel about it always, you know. And I think that's the most beautiful part about your story, in that is that you didn't see it as a death sentence. It wasn't like, oh, this is the end now, let me dwindle out and just fade into the background. You were like, cool, so this is my last go, I'm going to go out with a bang and I'm going to do it with bells and whistles on. And I love that so much, because yeah, I even I've got an episode to come with someone, and we were talking about you know, death. And it's only when you really appreciate and understand death that you appreciate life so much more. Because, you know, I think we all forget that it's inevitable, isn't it? You know, when no one's getting out of this alive. So I think if we, you know, the amount of time we spend, we just don't know. And I think if you're told that you have a certain amount of time, I guess in that you were thinking, well, I might as well make the most of it regardless, you know. And I think I'm sure that you were such a light in that space where, you know, people were coming in for treatment and feeling really rubbish. I'm sure that your energy of just appreciating life was really infectious to everyone in a good way, you know, whether they said it or not. I'm sure that you were a little ray of sunshine in there. And I'm sure that the nurses all appreciated that energy as well, because, you know, as you said, we talk about the seasons of emotion and the chemo and everything like that. You know, you're going through this up and down, but, you know, instead of you drowning in the waves, you've got a surfboard and you're just riding along. You're like, okay, I'm going to paddle, I'm going to take that wave and take it down. But yeah,
I mean, I called it a sabbatical. Like, I was
Yeah.
like, this is my sabbatical. I've got some like time out to
Yeah.
figure things out. And I did, because I had a lot of time. I had the chemo cycles, and the deal was, if the chemo works, then I could look at further treatment, stop coming back. So the first step was just like those 6 rounds. And then after that, that worked. And because I went in and had something called a PET scan, where they put radiation in your body, and then they put you in a big scanner, and then they look at where it is. And I went for that PET scan, and my whole, like, they show you the picture on the screen, and that, like, my whole body lit up like a Christmas tree. And I was just like, oh my God, it's like, it's literally, I couldn't get over that thought of, it's not in like a place, it's not like in an area, it's like in my blood, it's in my bones, it was in my bone marrow. It I had to have chemo in my spine, so it went up to my brain, which, like, you does make you forgetful. I like remember doing, like, forgetting words and things like that, but you just have to kind of laugh about it. But that moment then, when I saw that scan, I did get in the car. I remember driving back home with my husband. I asked him to pull over and stop, and I did get out of the car, and I just like vomited on the street with the kind of, oh my God, that's like mental. But then you just kind of like you just like you know what, just get on with it. And after that 6 weeks of 6 rounds of chemo, I had the scan again, and it was gone.
Wow.
Like, and it was like, oh my God, it's like there's no evidence of disease, it is gone. So then they said, well, you have 2 options. So you can leave it, but it'll probably come back, but you can only have like so much chemo in your lifetime. Like, so if it was to come back, there wouldn't be much there, like there wouldn't be very many options. Or you can have a donor stem cell transplant, which would mean it wouldn't come back, because we're essentially going to replace all your bone marrow, like all your defective bone marrow. I thought that is the only option. But there is a risk to doing that. But that's the road I went down. So, and I'm really glad I did. And I remember I went to Scarborough with my husband on a break, and I made an artwork of this. Actually, I've got a photopolymer print I did of, in Scarborough, there's a woman. She is a diver, and she's just about to dive into the water. And I sat under that sculpture, and I was like, that is the imagery of taking that leap. So I made an artwork of that. And then I went and had the stem cell transplant, which, again, it's all how you approach it from a mindset perspective. Because I had to be in a room for I can't even recall how long. It was maybe 6-7 weeks. I couldn't even have the windows open. It was one room, and because they had like destroying your bone marrow, when people come in to visit, they've got their masks and their gloves. Now this is like pre-COVID, so it was weird to see people in masks and gloves. And it was setting up a routine in that day. So I got a journal, and I set up my day, and I was like, right, I'm going to do some yoga in the morning, and then the nurse comes and does this thing, and then I'm going to make sure I do a little bit of I had a PlayStation there. I thought, well, I'll play some like first person games. Like, the whole day was just set out. So for the vast majority of time, I think there was probably about a week where I was probably too poorly to do much, but the rest of the time I just had these routines that made me feel like, I don't know, I even brought my own duvet in and decorated my room and put posters on the wall. And I thought, I'm going to make it feel like a university dorm. I'm going to make it, because I think it was just putting some things in place where I knew I might I'd struggle if it looked like hospital. Because I was getting frustrated being in hospital, so I had to make it look like my space.
And you're an artist, so it's that visual, isn't it, for you as well?
Yeah, because I think the environment we're in can do so much for us. I mean, that's
100%.
With the things that we surround ourselves with, even if we're not consciously aware of them, they have an impact on our mood and how we're feeling. The colours that we choose to put in our homes, things like that. So yeah, that's kind of how I got through that bit. And then I remember coming out of there and just smelling the grass, looking at the sky, just all of those things, I just was like, that's incredible. And I try and
Yeah.
hold on to it. Like I did struggle for a bit when I went back to work. I'd had some time after that when I was recovering. And actually during that time was amazing. So I went and did like life drawing classes and portrait drawing. And that's when I got into really into portraits, because I got and sit and draw a human for like 2 hours and just observe everything about their face. And there was just so much character and humanity in there. And I was just like, this is amazing. But when I had to go back to work, there was a bit of a shift. And I didn't want to get back into that world again and forget all of the positive things that I'd learned, because I learned a lot.
Absolutely.
So
I
I went
almost,
to,
sorry, go on. I was just going to say, I almost feel like you were like, I feel like we're almost like flowers, you know, like there's something about us that's like that blooms, right? And I feel like maybe in the case that you put yourself in your whole life, it was restricting your petals from blooming. And I feel like this moment that you've got to really go inwards in the part of when you're in the hospital and you're going through all that treatment, and as you said, like you found, you know, you had that time where you could just be without any of the other restrictions and things like that, almost like that case of like the matrix of the world was heavy on you, and like now the case came off, you were able to bloom fully. So almost taking your full flower of bloom to put it back into a cage or a case, it just didn't work for you anymore. Like that's what I'm feeling from you in this. 100%.
Yeah. And I think that was it. And my way of dealing with it was through mindfulness. And so I went to Maggie's and did a course on mindfulness, and I realized I'm a very active, mindful person. So I find my mindfulness through, I like outdoor swimming and walking and carving the lino as well. I like noticing things around me. So that's where I draw my meditation from.
Yeah, I love that so much. Like it's so wonderful to hear your story, and like, you know, we I think we take it for granted. I mean, you know, when you've had adverse situations in your life, regardless of what it is, I think it's that resilience that makes you appreciate life on a deeper level. And I think you don't necessarily need to have gone for a life-changing thing or like heavy bereavement or anything like that to appreciate life. It can be done in the smallest moments, you know, and even just, I hate that concept that people say, you know, like when they're wanting more for themselves and they're like, oh, but people in, you know, there's people starving in the world, so it's not as bad, it's not that bad, what I'm going through is not that bad. And I'm like, no, you're right, it's not that bad, but equally, if you want more for yourself, there's no reason why you can't have that. So don't make an excuse that, oh, I can't complain about my hating my 9 to 5 because someone out there is suffering. Actually do something about it. Do you know what I mean? Like,
it's all relative. I remember I had
absolutely.
this for a period while people felt like they couldn't talk to me about their problems and I was like, no, I'm still me. Still come and talk to me about your problems. They're like, well, it's not anything compared to that. I'm like, no, it's literally all relative. It is absolutely where you are in your current moment. And there are times when, like now, I will get really I'll get a bit stressed out about like something will really bother me, and then I just have to check myself on it. But it's okay that I felt that way about it, because it's just where I am right now.
Absolutely.
We can't be too harsh on
And we're
ourselves.
human, aren't we? Do you know what I mean? I think we all forget that, you know. But I guess, you know, with the theme of the podcast, obviously permission to shine, would you say that this, you know, this cancer, the diagnosis and the overcoming, would you say that in that diagnosis was when you gave yourself the permission to shine?
Oh, I think so. And I think after as well, I think when you realise, because I guess I would say previously I was putting all my energies into building something for other people.
Yeah.
And then I realised I'm really replaceable in that. Somebody else can come in and do my job and change the things, and it's not forever. I wanted to build something. This is why I love my art. I'm building something that's mine, and all of the energy that I put into it, everything that I'm creating, there's nobody else that can do that. Nobody can step into my shoes and do that. It's only going to be here while I'm here. It's going to be here in people's homes after I'm gone. And I only get one shot at it. So why on earth would I put it off and wait? Why wouldn't I see what's going to happen? Why wouldn't I put myself out there and see what can happen if I really try, if I really give it a go? And so it spurs me on. And I've been running my business now for 5 years, and there's so many pieces of artwork out in the world, and I'm just like, that's amazing. All of these really positive messages, all of these things that I want people to see in their physical environment, and that hopefully they do if they purchase, because they connect with it, because it makes them feel something. That is such a privilege to be able to do that in the world, and I wasn't allowing myself to do it at my fullest.
100%.
I was holding myself back, but now I'm not, because I just think I'm not going to be here. Like, I'm not going to be here forever.
Absolutely. And you know as well, the beautiful thing about the resilience you probably gained is that if someone doesn't like it, they don't buy it, because the next person that likes it will. So that's the thing, isn't it? It's like, as an artist, it's not your job to worry about who likes it or who doesn't. You create from your heart, and evidently people are buying. So it just shows, you know, to anyone out there listening that's like not sure to take the risk, not sure whether to do that thing, there is always everything, any idea, any service in the world is always needed, you know. And maybe it's at the beginning people don't realize they need it, but I can guarantee you everything we have, even a mobile phone. Do you think that, you know, when Apple decided to create an iPhone, that all the other phone companies were probably laughing at them? What you're going to create a mini computer that people are going to carry around all day? All right, now we're walking around with a watch, it's in our ears. Do you know what I mean? It's all of these things, isn't it? It's like all you have to do as an artist is just share your light, you know, in whatever form that is. If it's a song, if it's a dance, if it's a piece of artwork, if it's I don't know, a statue, we just have that power and that capacity. And I fully believe exactly the same as you. It's like, my life is my legacy, you know, like what I'm able to create and how I'm able to make people feel is the most important thing to me. And I would much rather people say about me when I'm gone, oh, she inspired me to do this, or she motivated me to do this, than, oh yeah, she did work really hard, didn't she? I didn't see her much, but she worked really hard. I know that she liked her job. She worked really hard at that. I mean, boring. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, are you going to pave someone else's pockets, or are you going to, you know, pave your own like masterpiece and create something magical? Do you know what I mean? This is the difference, isn't it? And I think you said something at the beginning about, I don't know if it's something about being one of many or replaceable. That was it. You said about being replaceable. And I felt the same, you know, like, I think in even in the dance industry, it can be very much like that. Now, we are celebrated for individuality more so now in the dance industry. But when I graduated, it wasn't that. And that was one of the deciding moments for me, where I thought, you know what, I'm not meant to be behind, I'm meant to be in the front. And I think probably the same as you, it's like, okay, like I could stand here and do this quite easily forever and it would be fine and it would be okay, but do I feel like my soul is on fire? No. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's when you know. And even from your life, I feel like you can see clearly that when you're following the wrong path, your body, your mind, your spirit, the universe will constantly show you where you're out of alignment, you know. And physically for you, that was through your diagnosis. So would you say, like, prior to that, there was like a number of other things that had happened in your life where you'd ignored sort of signs that can you see now?
Yeah, I think looking back, I was looking for something before I would go to like mind, body and spirit events and go to Taoist talks, and I was really interested in Buddhism, and I was like trying to, but I don't think I was really ready. I liked the concepts, but I wasn't living them. And I liked the idea of, oh, how good would it be to really feel in flow? But I recognised that I didn't have it, but I couldn't put the pieces of the puzzle together. I thought I could fix things by, if things got too intense, I think I'd like run away from them. So I would, like, I remember I just felt so overwhelmed with everything, so overwhelmed with work. And I was running at the time. I was training for like a half marathon. And so I just put my running shoes in a bag, and I jumped on a plane and I went to Spain on my own. And then I just ran up and down the beach like that. And everyone there spoke German. I didn't even meet any people when I was there. It was just, I just needed to be somewhere else. And I thought that meant that I was successful because I could do that. But it wasn't. It was me just trying to plug a gap, trying to fix, like put a plaster on something. Whereas now, because I've stepped back all my responsibility, I went to working part-time, started to create my artwork, started to invest in that. My lifestyle is quite different, but I am so fulfilled in what I don't need to run away. I don't need to go anywhere else because everything I've got, I've like built around me now.
Yeah,
And
you're
I've
the
got
creator.
extra stuff. Like I meet people, I've got capacity to, like I do improv and go and hang out with like really interesting, funny people that I can just feel like I'm playing, and I've not that at those moments feel like the stress is just completely gone as well. When I swim, like when I go into, there's like a lake near me, it's just a big vast lake.
Nice.
When you are in it, you feel so small. That's the other thing that's really weird. I like, you know, when you go like in the sea and you go as far out as you possibly can, so all the people on the beach are kind of anything, or like when you walk to the top of like a massive hill and you realize how small you are.
Yeah, I have that when I look up at the stars.
Yeah, there's something just really nice about that. But I think now but I've got space to do it. My head was full of work before, and I didn't really have anything going on outside of work.
It's like you're in your own way, aren't you, almost in those situations? And it's so important, like what you said there about, you know, you're trying to fill a gap. I was exactly the same, working to the core non-stop, and then any time I did have space, I was traveling. So I literally would plan a trip for like 2 or 3 weeks. I'd go out the country, and that'd always be like my recharge. But like you said, it was just filling a gap that was a void, and I couldn't fill it anymore. And I know so many people in my life are still in that space, and I think you know, that's such a deep rooted thing, isn't it? And only yourself can get you out of that space to really see and connect with your soul, to be like, is this what I want for myself? Like truly and deeply, is this what I want? Because I think we convince ourselves it is, don't we? Until something happens to shake things up. And it's in that shake up that the universe is like, wake up now. Come on, wake up. And then for you, obviously, life shattering completely, but actually the most reinventing thing that you could possibly have ever asked for. Like, I'm sure that your friends now probably, I can't even believe like how much you've evolved and, you know, grown as a person. Like, as I said, like fully blooming, you know, I'm sure that you've had that feedback, surely.
Yeah, I think it's just because obviously they're like happy. I'm like happy I'm still around, because there was that very obviously really scary time. But no, it's nice because I feel like everyone's kind of behind me as well. I feel like I've got that support, and they know that I'm doing this because I like really, really want to be doing it. I'm not doing it to meet anybody else's expectations, or it's like it's actually what I feel called to do. It's like my absolute purpose. You couldn't be an artist, I don't think, if it wasn't at your absolute core, because realistically you are, if you think about just on a practical level, the amount of time and effort and energy and like all of that you put into it far exceeds probably the hours I was working. I mean, I was working a lot of hours before, but this exceeds it because I'm doing it in the evenings. I get up in the morning, like, but because it builds me up, because it like nurtures me, because I'm doing something that's, it's not draining.
Absolutely.
The more I create, the more I want to create. Kind of creativity breeds that.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, I think I've gone on a bit of a tangent there, but yeah, my friends' family honestly have been fantastic. They were fantastic throughout, and I think they're just happy I'm here. I'm really happy I'm here, and I feel like I just owe it. I owe it to myself to do what I want to do, but also I know that there's people that I've met along the way that weren't able to do what they wanted to do.
Of course, and it makes it richer for why you had to do it. Like that, You didn't have a choice. Like, the universe gave you these cards and was like, you know what, this is your chance to do this. There's people here that haven't got that opportunity. Not that it's about anyone else, but it's your, like, you've got that, like I talk about, that little burning flame inside of you, and it was caged for so long, and now that you've
given it for a reason.
Exactly, and now you've given yourself the permission to shine fully and brightly, that, you know, you are just fulfilling your soul's purpose, which is just so incredible. And like, you know, by default, you're inspiring so many people from it. And I think we all have some form of that in our life. And I just, you know, that's really the purpose of this podcast, is that it doesn't matter what you've been through in your life, whether it's severe trauma or not, you know, you have, as a human being and as a soul in a body, you have this right and this gift, whatever it is, we all have one. And it's up to you to shine that light out, because otherwise you're just walking around like a zombie, existing for the sake of it and never really living. Do you know what I mean? And I can't shake people enough on that. Like, I just feel like, especially as well, like, you know, I've lived quite a complex life myself, but every time I have a guest on that has a different experience, or even the same, I'm like, yo, this is why I'm doing this. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is exactly why I'm doing this, because I just feel like if we can just, you know, shake everything up and just remind everyone about how incredible we, each and every one of us are, and
Absolutely.
we have that gift to share. And, you know, I'm sure that everyone around you is so proud of you and inspired by you because of the way you handled the situation. And if you didn't, even if you decided that, you know what, I'm just gonna go inwards, I'm just gonna, you know, focus on my mindset and I'm gonna get through it, either way people would have been proud of you, because if that was what your soul needed at that time and you listened to it, then that's it. But actually for you, I feel like you've got this like vibrancy about you that's I'm sure you had before, and I'm sure that you'll continue to have forever, which is just so wonderful and magical. So I guess on that, you know, what would be your kind of advice for anyone maybe going through something right now where, you know, maybe they've had a diagnosis, or, you know, like maybe there's like 3 key points where, you know, maybe someone's had a diagnosis, either themselves or someone they know. What would be your like kind of best advice for those situations?
I think the first thing would be, like, we are stronger than we give ourselves credit for. We almost imagine that if we're in these situations that we're somehow not going to be able to deal with it, but actually we do. We're amazing. We have a massive capacity to be resilient, and we have a massive capacity to deal with change. We wouldn't choose it, but we can do things. We can do hard stuff. So that would be my first thing. We are strong as human beings. We are really strong. The second will be, like, in those probably more difficult times, just remembering that this will pass. That was kind of my mantra, like, this will pass. There is also these huge moments of joy in there. Plan them, seek them out, build, do you know what? Build memories, take photos, like, build memories, take photos, plan stuff in the diary, and just build a life, because you could probably find that you do more in those small chunks of time than you probably did in a whole year, when you weren't really fully embracing it. And I think that, yeah, those have been my kind of 2. And then actually probably the third one, we grow through things, like, and it's the things that, it's like, I did a painting called, so I did a painting. It was a figure, and the figure was kind of had loads of cracks. Like, for a while, a few of my figures had cracks in them, and the idea was that actually it's the cracks in the pavements where the flowers grow, and it is through the things, the difficulties that we've been through, that make us richer, that give us depth, and actually that's the gift. That's part and parcel of being human. That's a gift of being here. So just to perhaps remember that.
Yeah, oh, that's so beautiful. And, you know, I always say, like, you know, the cracks are where the light gets in. So I think that it's the same thing, isn't it? And how we've been talking about you blooming, you know, like, it really is that, and so wonderful and beautiful. And, you know, I'm so grateful I got to share this space with you, because I can just feel you, you know, like, I'm so intuitive, I can feel you. And that's from the moment that I met you, I kind of had that energy exchange. So I feel like, you know, this is not going to be like, I'm never going to let you go now, I'm going to just keep an eye on what you're doing. And I actually think that I want a piece of art, so I will be invested in your stuff too. But please let our listeners know how long you've been in remission.
So it was 6 years recently. Yeah.
Incredible.
Amazing. It's so nice. It's so nice because now I'm starting, because now I said the world got quite short. I could only think 6 weeks ahead, and then gradually start to think, say 3 months ahead, then gradually start to think, or maybe a year ahead. And it's took me a while to really start to think further. And now I'm in a place where I'm thinking, do you know what? I'm picturing my studio at the bottom of the garden. I am picturing what I want my life to be in like 5 years' time. And I'm allowing myself to be envisage that now.
Oh, how wonderful. I'm so happy for you. And just to round off the episode, like I always do, like a little soul to soul message, which you've given so many gifts of wisdom in this episode, but you know, it could be to your younger self, it could be to just whatever's in your heart right now that you want to share. Like, what would be your kind of closing message from your heart space that you wanted to just give?
Oh, so if I was perhaps go back to my younger self, I would just say, I would say go for it, and don't be afraid to be who you are. That would be it.
Yeah, no, you're so right. Oh, I think we could all listen and take that as well. You know, I would have said exactly the same myself. So Claire, where can we find you if we want to buy some art, if we want to look you up? Where are you? I mean, I'll put all the links in my bios, but for this listeners.
So you can find me pretty much if you type Curious Inky Me on Google. I've got a website. I'm also on Instagram as Curious Inky Me. And if you want to hear from me, I send out emails, like monthly emails with just thoughts on what's going on. So if you want to keep in touch that way, the subscribe page will be in the bio. But yeah, if you just want to kind of follow along, have a look at what's being created. The work shifts and changes as kind of I've evolved and will continue to evolve, as all humans do. So if you want to follow that journey, Curious Inky Me.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Claire, for joining me and just sharing your story and your light with the audience, as I'm sure there was just so many amazing takeaways for everyone listening there. So yeah, thank you for your time and your space and your energy today.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Sherisse Bisram, Inner Power Activation Leader for Women. If you are ready to up-level, to elevate, to ignite your inner flame, to burn everything you once were, to trailblaze into your future, into all of your manifestations and more, then head to my website to book a free 30-minute alignment call. I have one-to-one containers available for 90 days and 180 days. I also have an online program for 6 weeks. It's a group program for women called Permission to Shine. That's also available as a self-study as well. I have a journal available on Etsy as well as worksheets. There's multiple ways to work with me, and I'm here to help you. You deserve to shine, to be the most amazing, most confident, fearless version of yourself. What are you waiting for?